With a relieved sigh, Dare slammed the 3 cards down, wiping the sweat from his brow. He looked victoriously at Ty, the casino owner. "See, your luck can't be bad forever. It's gotta turn sometime, and now it has." Dare swept the pile of money toward him. Suddenly, Ty grabbed Dare's hand, his jowls quivering slightly. Old woman Thang's eyes bored into Dare. Dare's right arm, tattooed with a fierce black dragon, flexed. Ty slammed his hand on the table with a loud thud, his victorious snarl cutting through the air, making Dare's face darken. "You think so? But look here, old man." Ty pointed at the ace of clubs lying neatly among the 3 cards in front of Dare. Dare silently chose to let go. A hollow, choked gasp escaped Dare's throat. His parched lips stretched into a gaping, unclosing maw. In a weak, trembling voice, Dare pleaded with Ty, "Just lend me 5 million more, please, just 5 million." Ty cut him off. "If you don't have money, just leave and make way for someone else. How many bets have you lost already, you useless gambler?" Dare abruptly stood up, his face a mask of defeat. All his family's savings, 20 million, intended for the purchase of his motor taxi, was gone. He'd lost it all in just 15 rounds of cards. He pulled a crumpled cigarette from his shirt pocket, lit it, and took a deep, shaky drag before leaving. Dare, 25 years old, had been out of prison for only 3 years after being jailed for theft. Unlike others who turned their lives around, Dare showed no interest in working. He plunged deeper into drink and gambling, just like tonight. The meager sum his parents had painstakingly saved to buy him a motor taxi so he could earn a living was now gone. As he walked, Dare mumbled curses, calling Ty a greedy dog for his bad luck. "My life is so cursed," he thought. "Will I ever be able to hold my head high?" The memory of the debt collectors, a rowdy gang, flashed in his mind. They'd come knocking that very night, whispering rumors about his father absconding by boat with the crew. They left behind Dare's mother and him, 2 children clinging to each other, burdened with a 100 million debt. Their only asset, the house passed down from his great-grandfather, was immediately claimed by the loan sharks. Dare's mother, Mrs. Ha, bit back her tears, sending her young son to live with a widowed aunt in the next district. 10 years later, Mrs. Ha remarried and now lived with her second husband, Mr. Fu, in a shantytown, a place teeming with the poor and the marginalized, where drug dealers trafficked their wares nightly, and curses and fights were as common as meals. The stench of alcohol and poverty permeated everything. Dare's personality was profoundly affected by this environment. Though his stepfather, Mr. Fu, tried to guide him, Dare had always been stubborn and rebellious. Mr. Fu worked as a stevedore at the port, and Mrs. Ha sold lottery tickets, but they still tried to save money for Dare's education. Yet, Dare quit school after only the 7th grade. At 15, he led a gang of street thugs, harassing passengers and schoolchildren alike. For a while, people hoped he would change after his time in detention, but he only spiraled further into a life of crime. In the 90s, during Vietnam's period of strong economic reform, Mrs. Ha and Mr. Fu decided to send Dare to learn motorcycle repair, hoping to open a shop for him. But Dare's business ambitions never materialized. Instead, he spent his days with his gang, drinking and carousing until all his money was gone. His loyal followers abandoned him, leaving him to wander the streets for days. Yet, Dare always wanted more. In a moment of weakness, he stole a motorcycle, planning to sell it for quick cash. Stealing cars was easy for him. He even had a network for selling stolen goods. But that day, he made a mistake, was caught, and sentenced to 3 years in prison. After his release, Dare continued his aimless life. Finally, Mr. and Mrs. Fu bought him a motor taxi, hoping he would work as a driver. It was a decent living, if one ignored the sun and rain and the constant fear of bad luck. But Dare's rebellious nature seemed ingrained in his blood. Just yesterday, while Mr. Fu was hauling cement onto a truck and Mrs. Ha was diligently selling lottery tickets, their good-for-nothing son gambled away 20 million dong, the hard-earned savings they had buried in a glass jar under their bed. He even pawned the motor taxi to gamble it all away. At 5 p.m. that evening, the sounds of gambling and shouting echoed from the small house. Dare lay with his legs crossed like a king, absorbed in his cheap phone, checking the lottery results. "Cam Nguyen from down the street still owes me 500 points, he muttered. "Why are you playing the music so loud, Dare? You're disturbing the neighbors, they'll complain." Mrs. Ha's voice screeched, but Dare, lost in his game, simply turned down the volume. What are you talking about, Mom? Can't you see I'm concentrating? Mrs. Ha sighed, looking at her lazy 20-something son. If you're going to play music, keep it low. You're bothering the neighbors, and don't you see I'm trying to study these numbers? What neighbors? Who dares to step into this house? I'll beat them to death, Dare retorted. What's wrong with you? All you do is cuss and swear. Look at your peers. Even if they didn't go to school, they know how to work. All you have to do is take care of yourself, and I'd be happy. Dare mumbled something about the lottery, casting a sidelong glance at his mother. You're annoying, Mom. Just be quiet. Don't jinx my luck. If I lose this lottery, I'm blaming you. I knew it. 49 for 48, what a curse. Dare grabbed a thin shirt, throwing it on, his face dark as he headed out. Mrs. Ha watched his retreating back. Where are you going now? You just got back and you're already going out with that gang again? Dare glared back at Mrs. Ha, his tone provocative. Where I go is none of your business. Can't you just be quiet for a minute? Why do you always nag? With a furious kick, Dare slammed the door and stormed out. What's going on? What's all that noise? Mr. Fu's booming voice startled everyone. You rebellious brat, are you yelling at your mother again? Now you're going out to play only to bring trouble back to this house, aren't you? Dare lifted his chin, staring at Mr. Fu defiantly. Where I go is none of your business. You're just my stepfather, you act like my real father. My real father never lectured me. Who do you think you are? Mr. Fu's face darkened. He grabbed the door frame, pointing at his wife's stepson. If you take another step out of this house, I'll break your legs, you hear me? You already gambled away the motor taxi I painstakingly bought for you, didn't you? Dare, enraged, stepped closer, sneering. Oh, you're so tough, huh? Go on, hit me then. Do you think I indulged you so you could be disrespectful? Today, I'll teach you some manners. Mrs. Ha rushed forward, pleading. Please, son, I beg you. Mr. Fu stood his ground, gritting his teeth, his grip tight. Dare, even more defiant, pushed closer, looking up at Mr. Fu. Hit me, go on, hit me. Mr. Fu couldn't hold back. He slapped Dare hard across the face. The force of the blow sent Dare's thin, starved-looking body stumbling backward. Mrs. Ha cried out in shock and accusation. Dare, he's your son, how could you hit him? Dare jumped up, roaring, you hit me? Who do you think you are? You dare hit me, your mother's son, after what she's done for you? Mr. Fu, trembling with anger, spat. A wife is ruined by her husband, a child by his mother. You spoiled him too much. He's riding roughshod over everyone in this house, treating no one with respect. Let me teach him a lesson. It's better than society doing it. He's running with that gang of hooligans, ruining his life. Dare scoffed at his stepfather. Hooligans. Who are you, you skinny, wretched stevedore, to call my friends hooligans? Look at yourself. You're no better than a beggar. You stole money from this house to go play with them. When your mother didn't give it to you, you resorted to violence. Do you think money is easy to earn? Mr. Fu's voice dripped with scorn as he spat out curses. You old hag, get out of my way. You're the kind of woman who lives with another man before divorcing her husband, and now this is what happens. You deserve it. Mrs. Ha fell to her knees, clutching her son, crying, Dare, I beg you. Dare pushed his mother away, shattering a vase before storming out of the house. Mr. Fu sighed, went to help his wife up, then turned to the door and roared, You ungrateful, rebellious brat. Bring more trouble to this house, I dare you. Dare stormed out into the darkening evening. The streetlights, dim and few, cast a pale, yellowish glow on the patchy asphalt like lost fireflies. He pulled out a crumpled cigarette and took several deep drags. He was heading to a friend's house when he noticed a new taxi pulling up at the end of the street. The taxi door opened, and a young woman in a white dress stepped out. It was the first time Dare had seen her face. A gentle beauty, hidden beneath long, dark, flowing hair. Her slender figure and fair skin immediately marked her as someone from a wealthy family. Dare stood transfixed, watching her. The girl pulled a heavy suitcase, looking around as if waiting for someone to pick her up. Dare quickly tossed his cigarette, straightened his collar, smoothed his messy hair, and approached her. Miss, are you looking for someone? It seems this is your first time in our neighborhood. I'm Dare from nearby. My house is just around the corner. The girl, startled by the sudden voice, turned around, curtsied slightly, and replied in a clear, sweet voice, Yes, hello, sir. I'm Cam. I'm looking for my maternal grandparents' house. I've been living abroad for so long, I've forgotten the way to their house. It's been almost 15 years. Dare looked at her intently. Beyond her elegant beauty, her expensive clothes, and the faint scent of perfume, there was nothing about her that fit this impoverished neighborhood. Dare couldn't help but ask, Are you sure your grandparents live in this area? Cam pulled out a piece of paper, muttering the address, but it was loud enough for Dare to hear. Dare let out a sound of realization, then pointed across the street. Than Zion Village is over there, not here. Who are you looking for in there? Has anyone come to pick you up yet? The girl shook her head. I called their landline, but I guess my grandparents aren't home. My grandparents' names are Mr. and Mrs. Tuck. She looked up at the darkening sky, a hint of worry on her face. Dare noticed this and with a sincere smile said, Is it Mr. Tuck, the former motor taxi driver? Yes, that's right. Do you know my grandfather? Dare's face brightened. Not only do I know him well. Your grandfather and I are colleagues. If he isn't here to pick you up yet, then come with me. I'll take you home myself. Besides, I'm heading that way anyway. This place is a bit rough, and you're a young woman standing alone like this, someone might bother you. Cam, flustered, quickly thanked him. Oh, thank you so much, sir. Dare gently took her suitcase and led Cam to his bike. He talked cheerfully on the way. Late that night, Mrs. Fu had fallen asleep in a troubled slumber. Mr. Fu, sipping some fresh tea, was about to go to bed when he heard footsteps on the dirt floor and muffled voices. He assumed his rebellious son was back from a drunken night out. Mr. Fu didn't bother to care, he was used to it. But this time, things weren't as he expected. In fact, he was taken aback by one surprise after another. First, his son brought home a young, beautiful girl. Second, Dare's way of addressing him was very unusual. Hello, father, say hello, father, this is my father. The girl, Cam, bowed her head politely to Mr. Fu. Mr. Fu stood stiffly, pointing at the girl, his voice filled with curiosity. Who is this, son? Dare scratched his head. This is Cam, Mr. Tuck's granddaughter from the next village over. Dad, Mr. Tuck, the one who rode with me a few times, do you remember? Mr. Fu laughed. Ah, so you're Mr. Tuck's granddaughter, are you? Where did you come from? Cam softly replied. I just came back from abroad recently. I came to visit my grandparents, but they aren't home. I don't know where to go tonight, so I asked Mr. Dare and the two of you if I could stay. Mr. Fu, now fully awake, exclaimed, Of course, our house is shabby, but if you don't mind, please stay. Mrs. Ha will clean a room for you. Why are you letting your girlfriend stay here like this? Take your girlfriend inside to rest. You're a grown man, don't be so clumsy. Mr. Fu's words made Dare and Cam exchange a slightly flustered look. Dare quickly brightened and replied, Yes, sir. He then followed the instruction. It seemed that having the girl there made Dare more subdued, which delighted Mr. Fu even more. That night, Dare gave his bed to Cam and slept on the sofa in the living room, his heart pounding with excitement. The next morning, Dare woke up early, cooked breakfast for everyone, and woke his parents and Cam to eat together. Mrs. Ha looked on in astonishment after hearing Mr. Fu's brief account of the situation. It seemed her wayward son had changed his ways. Perhaps they could even get Dare married soon, so he'd settle down and work seriously. Dare prepared breakfast meticulously that day, with many colorful and appetizing dishes. But strangely, Cam only ate a single bowl of plain rice, not touching any of the food. Even when Mr. and Mrs. Fu put food in her bowl, after the meal, her rice was eaten clean, but the dishes remained untouched. Mrs. Ha, concerned, asked, Why aren't you eating the food, dear? Don't you like village food? Cam shook her head, saying nothing. She seemed very quiet compared to others her age. After eating, Cam excused herself to rest, citing fatigue. Mr. and Mrs. Fu urged her. Yes, dear, go rest. You must be tired. We have to go to work now, but Dare will take you to your grandparents' house later to see if they're back. Just rest. For the first time in their lives, Mr. and Mrs. Fu saw Dare washing dishes, even whistling softly. The couple exchanged knowing smiles, then went about their day. After the dishes were done, Dare pushed Mr. Fu's Honda out of the house. He went back into the room. Cam, are you awake? I'll take you over to see if your grandparents are back. Yes, Cam replied, slowly stepping out. The weather that day was still gloomy, without a ray of sunshine. Yet Dare could clearly see Cam's face, flawless white skin, beautiful features with a high nose bridge and clear, wistful eyes hinting at a deep sadness. He felt his heart stir. There was something about this girl that utterly captivated him. The Honda carried the two of them slowly out of the alley. People in the shantytown saw Dare with such a beautiful girl and whispered, asking who she was. Dare, embarrassed, just laughed it off, saying she was his cousin visiting. But Mr. and Mrs. Tuck were still not home. Dare looked around, then Cam said she was tired and wanted to rest. Dare, wanting to please her, started the Honda slowly and turned back. Back at the house, Cam immediately went into the room and lay down. Dare thought she might have caught a cold, her complexion had turned pale. He got some hot oil to rub on her, then told her to rest while he went to cook her some hot recovery porridge. You rest, okay? I'll quickly cook you some porridge. Yes, thank you, I'm so much trouble, Cam said, pulling the thin blanket over herself and turning to face the wall. Dare's heart swelled with joy. He wished this beautiful girl would stay by his side forever. Just as he was about to cook the porridge, Dare was startled by a soft voice from the fence next door. Dare, Dare? Dare put down the rice next to the rainwater tank and slowly approached. It was Mrs. Thew, the neighbor, separated by a cement fence. Mrs. Thew was a spirit medium known for her questionable practices. What do you want, Mrs. Thew? I was just burning offerings. Who was that girl you brought through the gate? She looked strange. Her skin was as white as marble. She looked like a ghost. Your whole family are ghosts, Mrs. Thew. Don't be so superstitious. We're neighbors, why do you have to trick people like this? What do you know? Mrs. Thew immediately retorted. Oh, for heaven's sake, I'm just saying, what's it to you? If you keep yelling like that, I'll lose all my customers. I need to make a living. Dare smirked. All right, everyone knows you're a fraud. But from now on, don't say things like that, okay? It'll cause trouble between us. Mrs. Thew muttered something under her breath, then turned and slammed her door shut. Dare shook his head dismissively, quickly washed the rice, and put it on the stove. That day, Mr. and Mrs. Fu, as usual, didn't come home for lunch. Dare helped Cam get up to eat a bowl of porridge and take some medicine, then urged her to lie down and rest. He went back to Mr. Tuck's house again, but the door was still locked. He sighed and quickly went to the market to prepare dinner. By 6 p.m., Mr. and Mrs. Fu were home. The whole family sat down to dinner, but just like before, Cam ate only plain rice. Her gaunt appearance, combined with her habit of only eating plain rice, made Dare feel increasingly uneasy. Cam was slender, yet ate an alarming amount of rice. Mrs. Ha served her more and more until the bowl was piled high like an offering, yet Cam ate it all. This puzzled everyone, but Cam remained polite, constantly apologizing for troubling the family. The three Fus, however, considered helping people a natural duty. Another day passed, and Mr. and Mrs. Tuck still hadn't returned. Dare remained quietly in his room, only coming out for meals and still only eating plain rice. Until 1 a.m. the next day, Mr. Fu couldn't sleep, so he got up to use the restroom. Dare was still asleep on the sofa, having given his room to Cam. Mrs. Ha had been asleep for a long time after a tiring day of selling lottery tickets. The house was completely silent, shrouded in a deep stillness. A faint moonbeam filtered through a small window, casting a pale white light into Mr. Fu's house. The family's outhouse was at the end of the garden, next to a canal filled with year-round black wastewater. Some wild morning glory vines trailed across the ground. Mr. Fu hurried back to the main house. As he reached the porch, he was startled by a strange sound. It sounded exactly like a comb raking through hair, a rustling noise echoing in the silent night. This night was so quiet that the sound pierced his ears with startling clarity. Mr. Fu paused for a few seconds, then pushed the door open. Next to the maroon sofa, where Dare was curled up, a woman was sitting, combing her hair. "Oh dear, why are you sitting here combing your hair so late?" Mr. Fu whispered, taking a sip of water. There was no reply from his wife. Mr. Fu felt a sudden unease and turned to her. "Why aren't you sleeping, dear? What are you doing out here?" Before he could finish, Mr. Fu gasped, his heart nearly stopping. As his hand reached out to touch the shadow on the shoulder, a shiver ran down his spine. An icy cold seeped into his fingers, coursing through his veins, straight to his brain, then spreading through his limbs, making his entire body numb. But the most horrifying thing was when the shadow of the woman slowly lifted her head. Mr. Fu was utterly terrified, his soul nearly leaving his body. The face was smooth, featureless, as if it had no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just a pale, spherical mass of flesh. Mr. Fu stood frozen for a moment. Usually people would faint when they saw a ghost, but Mr. Fu, for some reason, couldn't. It was as if an invisible force held him captive. He stared at the fleshy mass with dark hair flowing down both sides. As the overwhelming feeling of nausea grew, Mr. Fu saw eyes, a nose, and a mouth slowly appear on the pale, flesh-like face. Or rather, they protruded from beneath a long layer of skin. Two blood-red pupils slowly emerged from sunken eye sockets, staring at him. Two nose holes without cartilage, only two gaping openings. A black line stretched out, the length of a finger, revealing a mouth that reeked of rotting rat, making Mr. Fu want to vomit. Overwhelmed, Mr. Fu screamed at the top of his lungs, "Oh my God, a ghost!" Mr. Fu's frantic scream in the dead of night startled all three people awake. Dare was the first to bolt upright. Mrs. Ha, her hair disheveled, rushed out. Cam, trembling, huddled into the corner of the bed, covering her head with both hands in terror. It took Mrs. Ha a while to calm down. Dare poured his father a glass of warm water. Mr. Fu took the glass, his hands shaking as if he'd been struck by lightning. His teeth chattered uncontrollably, and water spilled through his teeth, soaking his shirt. Having lived with her husband for so long, this was the first time Mrs. Ha had seen such a terrified expression on his face. Mr. Fu's face was ashen, his terror unmistakable. Something truly horrifying must have happened to make such a brave man like Mr. Fu so afraid. The warm water soothed his stomach, easing the cold and dread somewhat. After her husband had calmed down a bit, Mrs. Ha put her arm around him and asked, "What's wrong, dear? Why did you scream like that? I was asleep." Mr. Fu, pale, looked at his wife and children, his eyes still wide with horror. He replied, trembling, "Cam, and you too, your mother and Mrs. Ha. Are you all here?" Mr. Fu nodded, confirming, "I'm this old, why would I lie? I went to pee, and when I came to the porch, I heard a sound like someone combing their hair. I thought it was you, dear, unable to sleep because of the heat, so you were combing your hair. After a couple of times, you didn't answer, so I woke you up to go to bed, and oh my God, it had no facial features. Its body was as cold as ice." Mr. Fu pointed to the wooden sofa where Dare had been sleeping, then continued, his voice hoarse. "It was hovering over Dare. I'm so scared, dear. I've never been so scared." Mrs. Ha frowned. "You said it was sitting on Dare. What are you talking about?" Mr. Fu pointed to the wooden sofa where Dare had been sleeping, then continued, his voice hoarse. "It was hovering over Dare. I'm so scared, dear. I've never been so scared." Mrs. Ha frowned. "You said it was sitting on Dare. What are you talking about?" Mrs. Ha and Cam approached the sofa. Mrs. Ha picked up something. "Oh my, how did my comb end up here, dear? I thought it had been lost months ago. I looked everywhere for it back then. How is it here now?" Mr. Fu snapped. "That's it." The ghost was combing its hair. It was making a dreadful combing sound. Dare argued, "Dad, you said it was sitting on me? That's ridiculous. When you opened the door to go to the bathroom, I was still half awake, not in a deep sleep. How could something be on me and I not know?" Cam chimed in. "Or maybe you were half asleep and saw things, Uncle." "Half asleep, dreaming, how can it be so strange?" Mrs. Ha put the comb into a glass jar under the table and said, "It's just a dream, silly. Let's go to bed, it's late. You two still have to get up early for the wedding in the province tomorrow, Uncle." Mr. Fu, clinging to his wife, let her lead him, soothing him. All four went back to bed as if nothing had happened. That night, everyone was silent. The third morning since Cam arrived, Mr. Fu and Mrs. Ha rode off to attend a wedding, leaving Dare alone at home. Dare took Cam to Mr. and Mrs. Tuck's house again, but once more, they were not home. Dare was about to drive away when he saw an old neighbor sitting and playing chess with another man at a table next to Cam's house. Dare stopped the bike, and he and Cam approached. "Hello, sir." "Excuse me, but do you know where Mr. and Mrs. Tuck have been these past few days? I've come by several times but haven't seen them." Facing the old man was another man with thinning, graying hair, a gaunt face, holding a child of about 5 or 6 years old on his lap. As the old man replied, Dare and Cam were startled by the child's incessant crying. The child, lying in the old man's lap, cried even louder when he saw Dare, making Dare bewildered. The old neighbor adjusted his glasses and replied, "On the night of the 5th, I saw the couple hurrying out somewhere in the dark. It seemed like they took a taxi. I was peeing by the fence and asked them, but they didn't answer and seemed very urgent." Dare nodded faintly. "Okay, so when they come back, please tell them that Dare from the next neighborhood came looking for them, and mention that their granddaughter is visiting." Then Dare turned to Cam. "Let's go back, dear. I'll come back again this afternoon." The two got on the bike and rode off. For a moment, the two men stared at each other, perplexed. The child suddenly stopped crying. The Honda carried them back to the shantytown, but a sudden heavy rain poured down just as they reached the entrance. They quickly pulled into a small shelter with a corrugated iron roof, huddling together to avoid getting wet. Cam shivered slightly from the cold. Dare boldly put his arm around her shoulder. When Cam didn't push him away or resist, his heart pounded with a strange excitement. He wished this moment would last forever, and the rain would continue. A warmth spread through Dare for this beautiful girl. About 15 minutes later, the rain lessened. With no reason to rush home, Dare suggested, "How about we take a stroll around here to lighten the mood? There are some cornfields and an old, quaint village near my house, if you'd like, Cam." Cam didn't agree, but she didn't object either, so Dare eagerly led her to his bike. The Honda struggled to roll along the muddy village road, past the shantytown, and onto a narrow dirt path. Long grass lined both sides of the road. Dare happily enjoyed the cold seeping into his body, especially with the beautiful girl behind him, making him feel warm inside. He drove further for a while, then parked the bike next to a pond. He and Cam explored the old village. Cam was like a child, experiencing the world for the first time. Here was an ancient banyan tree, there's some abandoned shrines. Elsewhere, a muddy, overgrown marsh. Dare seemed familiar with the area and took Cam to many places. This village was almost completely cut off from modern civilization, shrouded in an ancient hue from the lingering effects of the rain. After exploring for a while, they came to a muddy pond, covered with a greasy film. Dense, tangled trees surrounded it. On the bank stood a small, dilapidated shrine, with incense sticks long fallen, indicating it had been abandoned for ages. The shrine sat mournfully next to a broken stone mortar, its crumbling walls adding to the desolate atmosphere. Dare then said, "Over there is Nam Phap Pagoda. It's famous far and wide, Cam. Couples come here to pray for blessings and to be together." As he spoke, Dare pointed to the pagoda, its yellow plaster peeling in places, covered in moss. The shadow of an old banyan tree covered almost all its leaves, making the atmosphere even more eerie. A shiver ran down Dare's spine, and he didn't want to stay there long, feeling an invisible, oppressive tightness. Dare turned to urge Cam to hurry when something strange happened. When they first arrived at the village, Cam had seemed very happy, pointing here and there with enthusiasm. But now, Cam clung tightly to Dare's shirt, her entire body trembling as if she'd caught a cold. He saw Cam's face gradually turn white, her eyes wide, staring at the pagoda, startling Dare slightly. Dare turned away, trying to avoid her gaze, then urged her, "Let's go somewhere else, this place is too creepy." "Hurry, it'll be late soon, and you'll be even more tired." Cam pressed closer to Dare. He could feel the tremors in her small hands gripping him tightly. "Yes, let's go, brother. I feel like I can't breathe and I'm dizzy." Dare, startled, reached out to touch Cam's forehead. "Oh no, you're sick again. Why are you so cold?" "Yes, please take me home, brother," Cam said, pulling Dare's hand, hurrying back the way they came. Dare sighed, half his excitement was gone. From that moment, Cam returned to her quiet state, not answering any of Dare's questions. 15 minutes later, they were back home. Only the two of them were there today, as Mr. and Mrs. Fu were still at the wedding. Cam's fever seemed to be rising, and she was groaning. Dare, pitying her, said, "Go into the room and get some of my mother's clothes to change into. I'll wash yours later. Lie down and rest while I cook you some hot porridge. Hot porridge is very good for colds." Cam opened her eyes slightly, nodded, and made some inaudible sounds as her teeth chattered. After Cam changed, Dare put his hand on her forehead and concluded, "You have a cold. Your whole body is as cold as ice. Lie down here, I'll go cook you some hot porridge." Dare then pulled the thin blanket, tucked it carefully over Cam, and quickly went to the kitchen, which was located on the right side of the house. After scooping out a bowl of white rice, Dare quickly lit the fire, planning to cook a pot of porridge for Cam. Time passed, and the sky had turned dark. The bright morning in the village was quickly enveloped in black. In the sky, sharp thunderclaps signaled an impending storm. A damp chill, along with an ominous atmosphere, quickly engulfed the house and the impoverished shantytown. The banana trees in front of the house bent under the strong wind, rustling loudly. Streams of cold wind poured through the small vents and open kitchen windows, causing the red flames to flicker and almost die out. Dare reached for the fan on the dirt floor and quickly shielded the fire. The quiet, crackling flame revived. The stove glowed brightly, occasionally emitting crackling sounds from the charcoal. Above it was a heavy iron pot, probably several kilos, blackened with soot. Inside, fragrant porridge, made from newly harvested rice, was simmering. The shantytown was located in a low-lying area, surrounded by many tall, old bamboo groves. Thus, whenever there was a stormy night or when the sun dipped below the bamboo groves to the west of the house, the inside and outside of the house would become pitch black. And when the power went out, the darkness was almost suffocating. There were only 2 oil lamps in the village, one in the main living room, on the tea table, a few steps from the entrance, and another in the kitchen, used for cooking. Watching the porridge bubble and steam, emitting the fragrant smell of early-season rice, made the air gradually warmer. Outside, the rain poured down like a waterfall. The cold atmosphere seemed to chill the heat from the stove as well. The aroma of hot porridge, mixed with the scent of grass, wet earth, and burning wood, made Dare's stomach rumble continuously, as if protesting. Dare took the moldy, partially burnt wooden chopsticks and stirred the pot, adding a little seasoning from the ceramic jars to taste. Once he felt it was ready, Dare pulled out a few pieces of wood from the fire and stood up to go to the main house. Meanwhile, Cam was moaning softly, trying to sit up to eat some porridge, hoping to feel better before taking her medicine. But just as Dare stepped over the threshold of the kitchen, intending to follow the porch, which was dripping with rain, to the main living room, he suddenly stopped short, startled. A blinding flash of lightning illuminated the muddy ground, covered with countless dog footprints, making Dare jump for a few seconds. At that very moment, Dare saw Cam standing there, he didn't know when, grinning at him, as if playing a prank. Cam's forehead was beaded with sweat or rainwater, it was hard to tell. But strangely, Cam showed no signs of illness. Her skin had lost its pale color, as if she had never been sick before. It was as if Cam's illness was a clever ruse. Seeing Cam smiling at him mockingly, Dare was bewildered but quickly composed himself. He walked over and reached out to touch her forehead, but strangely, Cam's body was still as cold as ice. He didn't know if the rain made her body even colder. He looked at Cam for a few seconds, then chided her gently. "You're still sick. Go into the kitchen, I'll scoop you some porridge to eat quickly, or you'll get worse." Cam timidly replied, "I'm troubling you too much." Dare chuckled, pulling Cam into the kitchen, scooping her a large bowl of porridge and scooping one for himself. The two sat in the kitchen, slurping down their porridge. For some reason, eating this ginger porridge in the stormy weather was incredibly delicious. In no time, the pot of porridge was empty. Having eaten well, Dare's stomach was full and all he wanted was to sleep. "You go to the room and rest. I'll stay out here. With the power out, I guess they'll fix it after the rain stops." Cam obediently nodded and went inside. Dare felt his heart skip a beat with strange emotions. He quickly closed the main door, fearing the rain might splash inside. He turned down the oil lamp, took it into the dark room, and huddled under the thin blanket. He himself curled up on the soft sofa. After a while, Dare heard Cam's steady breathing, confirming she was fast asleep. The earlier porridge made Dare's eyes heavy. He wrapped himself in the blanket and soon drifted into a hazy sleep. The main door, banging periodically from the wind and rain, didn't wake Dare from his deep slumber. In his sleep, Dare dreamed of Cam, even imagining a day when he would marry her. Dare's eyes were tightly shut, his steady snores filling the air. He didn't realize that, since an unknown time, a pair of piercing eyes had been silently watching through the crack in the door, staring intently at him without moving. Along with those eyes, the terrifying creaking of the door grew louder. But Dare was unconscious in his deep sleep, so no matter how loud the door creaked, it didn't wake him. The eyes outside the crack seemed to disappear. They slowly closed and quickly vanished. Outside the door, only a faint, long black hair fluttered. Dare lay still for a long time, then the wind stopped blowing. He slept soundly. The rain stopped and strong winds continued to howl, rattling the main door with loud thuds. The noise woke Dare. He rolled over, startled, thinking the door was about to be blown off. He then realized the strange sound of sniffing hadn't stopped, and a faint, musty, damp smell seeped from the small, moldy corner of the house, making Dare feel a little uneasy. He bolted upright, cautiously crept to the porch. The sky outside was dimly lit, filled with cool, salty mist. He then returned inside, sighed, and sat on the sofa for a long time as if there was someone else there. After a while, Dare's eyes became heavy again, wanting to close and fall asleep at any moment. Dare was too tired from the many strange things that had happened over the past few days. He quickly drifted off to sleep right there on the sofa. A few hours later, due to the loud banging of the outside door, which no one had closed all afternoon, Dare was still asleep in the desolate, lonely house, making the surroundings feel utterly desolate. The loud banging of the door made Dare open his tired eyes again, looking around. He glanced at his wristwatch and muttered, "Damn it, I overslept, it's 5 p.m. already." Dare stumbled to his feet, still not fully awake. He went downstairs to the kitchen area, washed up, and quickly cooked dinner. By the time dinner was ready, it was 6 p.m. Mr. and Mrs. Fu probably wouldn't be home tonight. He closed the door, then lit a cigarette, holding it between his lips while waiting for the rice to cook. The village had been dark for a long time. It was late, yet there was still no electricity. The normally quiet shantytown was even quieter, almost eerily so. The incessant chirping of cicadas, the croaking of frogs, and the buzzing of insects in the yard made Dare even more somber. He was about to light another cigarette and call Cam for dinner when the wind suddenly picked up outside, blowing the door wide open. The oil lamp inside flickered and went out, startling Dare. He quickly put out his cigarette, fumbled for the flashlight under the table and turned it on, but the flashlight didn't work. Dare stood up abruptly, his hand groping for the matches on the table to light some candles. At that moment, the house door suddenly swung open with a terrifying creak, making Dare's hair stand on end. He spun around to face the door. Outside, a long, dark hair fluttered in the faint residual light. He could see a figure standing outside the door, staring intently at him. The figure was very familiar. He must have seen this person somewhere before. The same figure, the same white dress. He was startled, almost disbelieving what his eyes were seeing. "Is that you, Cam? What are you doing out there in the wind?" The figure outside said nothing, just quietly bowed her head, her hair fluttering as if it had grown longer. Dare hadn't finished asking, but he was met with an unsettling silence that swallowed the dark, hazy night. The shadow of the long-haired woman suddenly turned her back and slowly moved towards the kitchen. Dare felt his heart skip a beat, a bitter lump in his throat, accompanied by a growing sense of dread. He didn't hear any footsteps, or rather, the woman's shadow didn't seem to walk, but rather glided over the tiled courtyard. However, Dare's stubborn nature and the boldness of a man who had once been to prison overrode everything. He quickly ran to the porch, just in time to see the shadow of the woman in white sitting squatting by the stove, holding a bowl of porridge and slurping noisily. Witnessing that disturbing scene, Dare's previous fear almost vanished. He trembled as he approached, pointing to the ceramic bowl. The water in the bowl now reeked of decay, and thick mold clung to the edges. When the woman lifted her head, Dare screamed. It was a swollen, bloody, mangled face. Dare screamed again, then scrambled backward. He was fast asleep at 6 p.m., he didn't know since when. It was another dream. The rain outside had stopped long ago, only the sound of frogs croaking filled the damp earth around the house. Dare felt disoriented by all the events. After a few minutes, Dare cautiously went to the main house. He closed the wooden door. The rain had been heavy, and it had begun to seep into the house more and more. Just as he took 3 steps, intending to go inside, and the oil lamp on the table flickered out from the garden next to his family's house, which had a small wooden fence, Dare saw the chained dog from the afternoon howling with muffled barks, its front paws continuously scratching at the porch, making a whining sound that startled him. The current weather, though sunny during the day, was hot and humid, and the rain couldn't soothe it. But Dare's goosebumps suddenly stood up. The dog started barking loudly and continuously, and its sharp claws continued to scratch at the wall. The scratching sounds from outside, 3 dry, hollow knocks, suddenly echoed. Dare panicked, almost wetting his pants. But then, a very loud cry echoed from outside. This cry was exactly like the one he had heard in his dream. Though his mind tried to fight it, Dare's legs seemed to disobey him. He shivered and moved to open the wooden door wide. As he pulled the door open, he was utterly terrified, his heart stopping in his chest. In the muddy courtyard in front of the house, where rainwater had collected about 10 steps from the doorstep where Dare stood, a withered iron tree stood, its leaves dense. A figure stood hunched under the tree, seemingly hesitating whether to enter or turn back. Although the distance was quite close, the dark night and the rain splashing like a curtain, along with the person's hair, made it impossible to clearly see their face. He then recognized the slender figure as that of a young woman. The figure stood still for a few seconds, then turned her back and slowly walked towards the dense bushes in the front yard. The rain suddenly stopped, and the neighbor's dog also stopped growling. During that fleeting moment, as if an intuition compelled him, Dare bit his lip and rushed to the gate, shouting loudly, "Who's there? Who's come to my house?" In the sky, a blinding flash of lightning illuminated the muddy road. The figure was standing motionless in the middle of the road. At Dare's shout, it turned its face. 2 blood-red eyes stared blankly, and its entire body emanated a cold, lifeless aura. From its throat came a series of chilling groans, like echoes from a distant, dark realm. Dare couldn't make out the words. It was just a raspy, gurgling sound, as if its tongue had been cut off. The oil lamp, which had just gone out, suddenly flared brightly again. It was then that Dare realized he had fallen asleep on the sofa and dreamed. But the nightmare seemed endless, terrifying Dare to his core. Then Cam's soft, hoarse cough echoed. Dare was relieved that the previous events were just a dream. "Cam, how are you feeling?" Hearing Dare's voice, Cam weakly propped herself up against the headboard of the bed and said softly, I'm not feeling better, brother. I'm thinking of asking for your and your parents' permission to leave tomorrow. My grandparents don't know when they'll be back. Dare smiled gently. Don't worry about it, just stay here. I'll cook dinner tonight. My parents probably won't be back tonight anyway. Tomorrow I'll take you over again to see if your grandparents are home. Your grandfather and I have known each other for a long time. Helping you is like helping family. You rest, okay? Since the power's out, it'll take a while to cook. Cam shyly nodded her thanks. Dare quickly grabbed the oil lamp, took it to the kitchen, and started a fire to cook dinner. As soon as he lit the fire, Cam came down. Oh, why are you coming down here? You'll get smoked and get even sicker. Dare gestured for her to stay away from the stove. You might get more tired just lying around. Let me cook with you, it'll be fun. Dare felt a warmth spreading through him, not just from the fire, but from the simple pleasure. The two figures cast long, dark shadows on the wall, swaying and dancing. Dare turned to get the salt. Suddenly, he felt a shiver run down his spine, cold to the bone. He felt an intense unease because on the wall besides his own shadow, Cam's shadow was nowhere to be seen. He stared intently at the spot next to him. Now it was the shadow of the woman he had met in his dream earlier. Her entire body seemed enveloped in a thin, translucent membrane, and the faint, rustling cry suddenly grew louder. The woman slowly turned her head, her neck creaking with an icy chill. Brother Dare, Brother Dare. Why are you staring at me like that? Dare stammered a few words, then blinked. Next to him was still Cam, in Mrs. Hawes' clothes, and on the wall her shadow was still cast. Dare blinked for a few seconds, overwhelmed by the strange things happening to him. But from that moment on, Dare began to feel his head spinning, hazy. He thought he was tired and had caught a cold from the rain, causing him to dream strange things. After dinner was done, thankfully the electricity returned. Dare and Cam went back upstairs. Dare sat glumly, recalling the haunting events of the day, still unable to explain them. He glanced at Cam, who was innocently watching TV, just like a normal person. Cam's innocent beauty almost made Dare's haunting fears subside. After a while, Dare said, "You're still sick, you should go to bed. I'll sleep on the sofa out here." No, you should come into the room tonight. If you don't mind, you can sleep in the same room as me. If you sleep out here, I'll feel really bad. No way, you're a precious gem, I wouldn't dare, you go to bed. If I don't go to bed, you'll stay awake here. It's not right for a guest to pressure the host. Dare eventually relented. Okay, you go to bed. I'll finish this cigarette and watch the end of the soccer game, then I'll come in. Cam stood up, went into the room, and left the door open. Dare sat smoking, staring at the TV, his heart filled with 1,000 conflicting emotions. He thought for a moment, convinced he was just dreaming strange things and seeing illusions. After all, there were no ghosts in this world. Dare hoped that was true and put aside his worries. At this point, Dare was sure the person next to him was flesh and blood, so his mind was 8 or 9 parts clear. But after a while, Dare's perspective shifted. He became utterly convinced that if there was light, there must be shadow. If there were the living, there must be wandering spirits. It was about 10 p.m. The entire shantytown was silent in the dark. Occasionally, only the chirping of crickets and the croaking of frogs broke the silence, then darkness returned, accompanied by the steady drumming of the rain. Watching the soccer game, Dare suddenly turned around because he felt someone standing silently, watching him. Behind him was just a green, peeling wall. He sighed, reassuring himself, and stood up to get a drink of filtered water from the fridge to clear his head, then continued watching. 10 minutes passed, and he quickly turned back again. His entire body felt tingly and cold, because just a few seconds earlier, he had clearly heard a sigh coming from deep within, along with a ticklish sensation as if a woman's hair was brushing his neck, or as if someone had breathed heavily down his neck. A cold shiver ran through him, covering him in goosebumps. There was still only the wall behind him, with shadows of a few moths flickering. He composed himself for a few seconds, then quickly turned off the TV, intending to go into the room to sleep. Cam was lying still, her back to him, breathing steadily, deep in sleep. Dare gently pushed the door open. He thought if the person next to him today was a different girl, it would be fine. But alas, it was Mr. Tuck's granddaughter. Mr. Tuck had helped him countless times, so no matter how much Dare wanted to, he wouldn't dare cross the line. Dare tossed and turned for a long time before finally falling asleep. He didn't remember what time it was, only that he woke up with a start from a sound right next to his ear. A persistent gnawing sound, like woodworms eating wood, annoyed him greatly. The weather was humid, though bright and oppressive, even after the rain. The dark room suddenly became bone-chillingly cold. He felt a shiver run through his body, as if he were soaking in ice water. He quickly pulled the thin blanket, but it felt strangely heavy. It was as if something was caught in it. The air in the room suddenly grew colder. Dare tried to pull the blanket hard, thinking it was stuck on something, so he pulled with all his might but couldn't lift it. It felt as if Cam was lying on him. He turned to pull the blanket, and just as Dare turned his face, his eyes met the image of a corpse lying rigidly next to him. A thin, greenish hand gripped the blanket tightly. The face was gaunt, starved like a ghost's, with lifeless, blank eyes. Its mouth was filled with blood, and its tongue, severed and dangling by its root, was bloody and mangled, writhing back and forth. That terrifying scene made him scream in horror and recoil. "Oh my God, a ghost? Dare, brother Dare, why are you screaming so loud in the middle of the night?" Dare's eyes fluttered open, still wide with fright. He sat bolt upright, huddling into the corner of the bed. Sweat poured down his body. After a few seconds, he realized he had been dreaming, but the dream was so vivid that the image of the corpse lying next to him made him tremble. Dare, terrified, imagined that the gaunt, starved-looking corpse could leap at him at any moment, so he quickly scrambled off the bed, gasping for breath. Cam, seeing Dare's strange behavior, was also somewhat startled. After Dare had calmed down for a few minutes, Cam asked, "What's wrong, brother? Why are you mumbling and talking in your sleep like that? It took me a long time to wake up." Dare, his entire body shivering, looked at Cam and stammered, "THTH, there was someone lying next to me, Cam. It was the corpse of a woman." Cam heard that and was also startled. Seeing Dare's pale face and hearing him constantly say there was someone lying next to him, Cam believed Dare wasn't lying. But if that was true, it was truly terrifying. Overcoming her fear, Dare hesitantly turned on the light and searched every corner. Cam sighed with relief, realizing there was no one else there. Seeing Dare's ashen face, as if he had just witnessed something truly horrifying, Cam sat down in the chair next to him and asked, "What did you dream about, brother? Tell me." Dare, trembling, replied, "I clearly saw someone lying next to me. It was a woman's face, covered in blood." "I'm so scared, Cam." Cam, feeling sympathetic, pulled Dare's head onto her shoulder and comforted him. "It's okay, it's just a dream, brother." But Dare insisted, "No, it wasn't a dream, Cam," because it felt so real. Suddenly, Cam's voice changed, echoing from some distant, deep place. Do I look like it, brother?" Dare's eyes darted over, not knowing how many times he had faced that terrifying, monstrous scene. A corner of its head was crushed, sunken into a deep hole. Blood and brain fluid continuously oozed from it. Its face was swollen, with countless bruises and needle marks, and its severed head continued to ooze fresh blood. Dare writhed, scrambled off the bed, and tried to wrench open the door, screaming. Before he could finish, an icy, swollen hand slapped Dare hard on the shoulder, making him shriek and faint. What are you screaming about?" Cam exclaimed, startled. Dare looked around, recognizing Cam, flesh and blood. He stammered, unsure if he was awake or dreaming. He moved further away from Cam, then started sobbing, eventually speaking in broken sentences. "Cam, is that you? Where am I?" Cam looked at him, bewildered. "It's me, who else? What's wrong with you, brother? I saw you dreaming strange things and you were burning up with fever, so I went to get a towel to put on your head." "What did you dream about again?" Dare looked at Cam blankly, then pinched his arm. Feeling the pain, he finally believed it was just a dream. While Cam was out, Dare must have fallen asleep and nightmares had found him. Dare's face was still etched with horror. Cam replied firmly, "There's no one else here but me. You must have been dreaming." Dare, for a moment, didn't know how to respond. A few seconds later, he followed Cam back to bed. Cam lay on her side, turning towards Dare as if nothing had happened. As for Dare, he tossed and turned until morning, unable to fall back asleep. He was afraid the haunting nightmare would return, and he would have to live through that terrifying dream again. That morning, Dare woke up and smoked a cigarette. The sound of a Honda from outside the alley reassured him somewhat. Dare went to the back of the house to brush his teeth and wash his face, then quickly cooked breakfast. As always, Cam only ate plain white rice. After finishing her bowl, she excused herself to rest, citing fatigue. He felt immense pity for her. Because of him last night, Cam had to wake up. He felt a sense of longing rather than fear. After Cam went to bed, he gently closed the door and took his bike out to the end of the road to buy more medicine. At that small pharmacy, Dare unexpectedly ran into Mr. Tuck's old neighbor. Seeing the old man's face, Dare immediately asked, "Uncle, have Mr. and Mrs. Tuck returned yet?" The old man recognized Dare, quickly pulled him aside and whispered urgently, They're back, but Dare, please don't be angry. Yesterday, when you came to ask about them, when you left, you were talking to someone, weren't you? Yes, I was talking to Cam, Mr. Tuck's granddaughter. She even nodded to you, Uncle. The old neighbor froze, his face suddenly turning pale. He grabbed Dare's arm. That's right then, son, you met a ghost. When we saw you talking to yourself, I was walking by with my grandson and he saw it too, that's why he cried out. Children's eyes are unclouded so they can see ghosts. I'm telling you, you might be possessed, son, Dare protested. How can that be? She even ate and lived with my family. The old neighbor nearly fainted. He looked around as if afraid some invisible force was listening and would seek revenge. Good heavens, why are you so stubborn? There are plenty of strange things in folklore. Like in my village, there was a man who was followed by a ghost. It lived in his house and even had children with him. People said he was crazy, but I witnessed it with my own eyes. Ghosts only appear to those they want to see. I won't say any more. Do whatever you want, but remember, the living and the dead cannot live together. I'm going home. Dare watched the old man's retreating back as he crossed the street, frozen in place. About 10 minutes later, Dare decided to drive to Mr. Tuck's house to get to the bottom of it. Luckily, Mr. and Mrs. Tuck were home today. Mr. Tuck, are you home? It's Dare. At his call, Mr. Tuck hurried out to open the gate. Mr. Tuck's voice was filled with sadness. Dare, come in, nephew. What a shame, I haven't seen you in days. Come in, come in. Dare parked his bike and went inside. Inside, a mosquito net was drawn and Mrs. Tuck lay limp on the bed, looking as if she were gravely ill. Is she sick, Uncle? Has she taken any medicine? Mr. Tuck nodded quickly, pouring Dare a glass of warm water. His eyes welled up with tears. What brings you here, nephew? Come have a cup of tea. Dare went straight to the point. Well, your granddaughter came looking for you but couldn't find you. She's staying at my house and she's also sick. As Dare spoke, he didn't notice that the warm tea in Mr. Tuck's hand had already spilled over the rim. What? Who did you say? My granddaughter? Which granddaughter? The girl named Cam, Uncle. She's thin, beautiful, and very fair-skinned, about 18 years old. She's been staying at my house for 4 days now. Mr. Tuck covered his face and burst into tears, startling Dare. Mr. Tuck spoke through his tears. Cam died, nephew. She died several days ago. Dare's entire body jolted. His mouth fell open, his eyes wide with fear, trembling as if struck by lightning. Who died? Cam is still with me. Mr. Tuck shook his head, his voice choked. We went to Hanoi for that very reason, to identify her body. Look here, nephew. Mr. Tuck said no more, just turned and walked to the altar at the back, pulling out a brand new file. He placed it on the table, opened it, and looked at Dare. Look at this, nephew. He pushed the file towards Dare. Dare, trembling, sat down on the chair, his hand resting on the file. All his conflicting emotions surged. The answer would now be revealed. All doubts would be resolved. A thick curtain was slowly drawn back. The file clearly stated, Case File, Victim Nguyen Thai Hong Cam. The words in the file slowly burned into Dare's eyes. The first entry was exactly 4 days ago, May 4, 1995. The victim was a female, Nguyen Thai Hong Cam, 19 years old. Her body was discovered in a thicket by the Than Ngai Dike Road. The body showed no signs of decomposition, but her head was severely crushed, with 28 wounds. Her tongue had been severed. Male semen was found on her white dress nearby, which was torn and identified as belonging to the victim. Preliminary findings indicated the victim died from severe head trauma. Her throat contained a severed tongue, showing signs of struggle. The forensic department suggested the victim might have died by suicide, but there was no conclusive evidence. On the morning of May 4, 1995, at 6 a.m., Mr. Nguyen Hoi Duc, the victim's father, found his daughter missing and reported it to the village police. At 7 a.m. on May 4, Ms. Quyen Thur Phuong, while herding buffalo on the dike, discovered the victim's body. The incident was reported to the Than Ngai Commune Police at 7:30 a.m. the same day. Forensic examination indicated the victim likely died around 1 a.m. on May 4, 1995. May 5, 1995. Investigation into the death of Nguyen Thai Hong Cam. On May 4, 1995, the victim, Nguyen Thai Hong Cam, walked along the Dike Road past midnight to visit her maternal grandparents, Mr. Lai Van Tuck and Mrs. Tran Thai Hien. There, a group of 3 young men deliberately ambushed her, forced her into the thicket, and assaulted her. During the assault, the victim saw a man, approximately 1.7 meters tall, walking by. The victim cried for help, but the man didn't hear her, allowing the criminals to escape. Later, one of the three perpetrators confessed and turned himself in. The preliminary conclusion was that the victim committed suicide by biting off her own tongue to resist the assault by the group of criminals. The case is still under investigation. Dare couldn't read further. Tears streamed down his face uncontrollably. On the night of May 4, after losing all his money gambling and walking home distraught, at 1 a.m., he had walked past that very spot. He had heard faint moans, but disheartened, he had just muttered a curse, thinking it was some couple flirting. If only he had paid attention then, he would have noticed something unusual. But Dare sat there, clutching his face, feeling an immense burden of responsibility. Remembering Cam's face, he realized his grave mistake and wanted to atone for her. Because he had been blinded by the ghost of gambling, he hadn't paid attention. A poor girl was tragically assaulted right near where he passed by, and he hadn't known, leading to her bitter death. Dare felt deep sorrow and guilt, multiplying 100-fold. "Uncle, she's still in my house?" Dare pulled Mr. Tuck onto his motorbike and started the engine, driving straight back to his house. Upon arrival, he saw Mr. and Mrs. Fu standing nervously outside. Inside, an altar with incense, white flowers, and other offerings had been set up, as if they were performing an exorcism. It turned out Mr. and Mrs. Fu had long since realized their son was possessed. They had used the wedding as an excuse to invite a powerful shaman to perform a ritual for Dare. Dare pushed past them, but the shaman stopped him. "Don't go in, young man. This room is very dangerous. Stay back." The shaman, a short, scrawny man, went into the room. He examined the yellow talismans pasted on the door, then opened it. The room was pitch black. Dare could vaguely sense someone inside. He knelt, his face contorted, and cried out, Cam, it's all my fault. I didn't know about that tragic night. Please forgive me. If there's a sinner, it's me. Please rest in peace, Cam. Farewell." Suddenly, a mournful sigh echoed, followed by a rush of cold air that vanished. Outside, the dark clouds parted in places, allowing dazzling sunlight to stream into every nook and cranny. After that incident, Dare, along with his parents and Mr. and Mrs. Tuck, went to the city to visit Cam's grave and light incense. The group dispersed, but Dare remained, staring at the photo on the tombstone and weeping. After that, Dare transformed into a different person. No more gambling, no more dice games, no more smoking, no more drinking. He followed a friend, learning to trade, and a year later, he started his own business. 3 years later, he owned a chain of 20 construction material supply stores, making untold wealth. He brought his parents to the city to live comfortably. The house in the shantytown remained, renovated into a family altar to worship his ancestors, and Cam's memorial tablet was also respectfully placed there. Incense burned warmly year-round.